Hannah there,
Just,
Thanks. So earlier, a few minutes ago, when you were speaking about the inspiration, Mary, that you had, a couple of times you started to say, to me, and then you got interrupted. And it stayed with me, and I'm really curious about what you would have said.
Oh gosh.
And this is not the, and this has happened to me many times. Also watching videos.
Yes.
When Mary starts to speak, but then she gets interrupted, and sometimes I really have the desire to hear her as well. I needed to say this because this is really something.
There's a lot of emotion in that comment.
There is. Look, let's just talk about this in general because it's good. It's good. A lot of people have this issue. When I met Jesus, I had a lot of, it's funny because I'm actually quite fearful still, public speaking, but I had a lot of feelings about men dominating women, and I wanted to be his equal. I was actually in a lot of competition with him. I felt so useless. I wanted to prove I had something to say all the time, especially in videos and stuff. And so I would often be in quite a lot of addiction when I was going to speak. And Jesus doesn't really tolerate addiction very much. And so often he would cut me off midway.
As soon as I know Mary's in addiction, I'll cut her off.
Yeah. And
I'm responsible for love in this situation.
yeah, and so the truth needs to be said.
Not going to tolerate her in addiction, as well as I don't tolerate you in it.
Yeah.
Or myself in it, by the way.
Yeah. But I do understand that triggers a lot of feelings for women because they feel like Mary never gets to have her say.
Trust me, Mary gets to have her say.
I certainly get to have my say. In private, I get to have my say quite a lot. Blue ears, I think Jesus said once he had. And I think that has shifted a lot in recent times as there's less addiction in me about the issue.
Well, you've been working on your addictions in a public setting, haven't you?
I have, because we don't need to go into all of my personal emotions, but in a personal setting, there used to be quite a lot of emotion triggered for me, and I would get anxious and shut down and
maybe if we can just illustrate
influenced.
a few of those emotions so people get a perception, particularly one where when the group gets worried.
Yes. So there's probably three main things I can think of. One was I would often sit there and feel like I'm so ashamed of my condition and I'm so useless, I'm so behind Jesus in terms of love and I'm not developed and I don't want to feel that, so I want to prove that I have something to say and sort of icky, but true. And so that was often one of the addictions. Another addiction is that I am very emotionally sensitive and sensitive to spirits. And often I would feel when people were starting to get really worried or challenged by what Jesus was saying. And if you watch some of the assistance group videos, it is so clear. I would chip in with a joke at those times or lighten the mood or just explain it a different way or try to lessen the impact things were having on the audience, which is another addiction I had. The third one, probably dominant one that I can think of, is say Jesus is interacting with one of you and Jesus is very clear that he wants to give context to every answer that he has so that it benefits everyone. But I would often feel, no, this person just wants to hear about this thing. And so because I was very hooked into pleasing people, I would then try to direct Jesus, just get to the point. They just want to hear about this. And he'd be like, hang on, I've got to explain this whole other thing. And so...
See, I'm very conscious that you're not the only persons that are going to hear this discussion.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious that many of you will share it. Many of you, it may go online, who knows, we don't know. Many of you will just record it on your mobile phones and then share it, and who knows where that might go. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that we try to give as much complete information as possible about certain subjects.
And in addition, often you can feel the person thinks they get it. They think they know what you're saying. And I've witnessed this
and
too now.
Many times Mary thinks she knows, by the way, too.
Yeah. But actually, so there's this sort of desire, like, oh yes, I've watched the videos, I know what you're saying, but often Jesus is really presenting the answer that you are resisting emotionally, and so he's like, no, this is what they need to understand. They think they get it, but they don't. So a lot of those times you would see Jesus cut me off, but now I would say that I'm just as guilty of cutting him off, especially in like relaxed company, because we both get so passionate about the thing that we're saying, and we sort of cut each other off, which is maybe something we need to work on, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter much to us. We're one person.
Yeah. It
doesn't really matter much to us about who says what. And so if I feel that what Mary's explaining to you is not in harmony with God's truth on the matter, then it's important that I stop her. And there's a number of ways in the past that I tried to stop her, like, tap her on the thing or tap her on it, just to get her to pause. But Mary just...
In my addiction, baby, there was no stopping me.
You don't understand the 14 yet. One day when you meet most of them, you'll see they have very strong, powerful wills, and that nobody's stopping them from doing nothing. So
whether it's addiction or good thing, they're pretty dedicated.
So what has happened in the past is I have attempted to, in an unembarrassing way, stop Mary from going down certain tracks which I can see are either addiction or not the full harmony with truth, or feeding the fears of the audience. This is something that she's been guilty of doing in the past a lot, where I will say something, the audience gets triggered into fear, and instead of I just leave it with you. It's sort of like, too bad, you're afraid now. Well, it's an ant emotion, get over it. And Mary's going, but it's a big emotion.
Yeah, it's fear like commiseration. I used to
Mary
do
had
a lot.
of commiseration for fear.
Yeah.
And basically that's something you've only been working on the last couple of years, really, isn't it? Stopping commiseration for fear.
Yeah.
And
because I wanted it for my own fear before then. Yeah.
And so also what happens a lot in these discussions is people tell stories, and Mary likes people telling stories. And I'm going, I don't want to hear your story. I already know it.
Yeah.
Now, Mary doesn't know it. I understand that, because she hasn't developed that side of our soul yet where she can feel the story before you start speaking. But I have. I don't need to know your story. I need to say the truth to you about it. I can feel your story already. In fact, for most people, telling their story is actually their addiction. Does that make sense to you? Like you often, when you meet people, you tell the story, and if somebody listens to you, you go, oh, they're a lovely person. They listened to my story. And I'm going, well, actually, if they were emotionally sensitive, they would feel your story the moment they met you. So they'd already know your story, right? So when many of you come up and start speaking with us, I can feel your story. Not just your story you're talking about at the moment, but also the story of your life, the story of your history and where these feelings have come from and all these kind of things. Now, Mary can't do that quite yet.
I can do it in some cases, but
as long as she's not afraid.
Yeah.
And oftentimes...
And I would say that's only just developing really in me anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when people want to tell their stories, I want to stop you, right? And you'll notice me doing this more and more, actually. And the reason why is when a person tells a story in a group of 100 people, they are being selfish. They are not acting in harmony with love. The only point of telling your story in front of 100 people is if 50 or more of those people actually have the same story. Because then 50 or more people, a group of people can hear the story and learn from it. But if you're just one person telling a story and it's quite unique, and sometimes they are, all you're doing is feeding your own addiction, and you're forcing everybody in the group to listen to that addiction. And many of you know, as this happens, you can feel in you, can she just move on? Or can he just move on with that? You start feeling that, right? You can start feeling, what's this person raving on about? And it's not conducive to the sharing of truth either, because once a person is in their story, they're not humble anymore. They're not being humble anymore. They are actually not wanting to know the truth. They are wanting to share their truth, which is not the same thing, right? And your truth is not God's. You've got to remember that too. So there's many, many reasons why we might interrupt you. But besides the fact that we both get enthusiastic and also for us, like if Mary's talking to somebody, I don't feel I need to talk to them. So it's funny when people say to Mary, they're talking to Mary about a subject, and then they say, can you arrange to talk to Jesus about it? Which is something that happens quite a lot, mind you. And I'm going, why? You talk to Mary about it. She's the other half of my soul. We're the same person. Why do you need to talk to me as well as Mary about something? It is a misunderstanding of who we are in that regard, I feel.
And I do just encourage you when you watch those videos and Jesus cuts me off to feel what it brings up for you, because, there's a lot of intergender issues on the planet, and if you could feel Jesus' feelings for me, he's very respectful, and really if you want to talk, you kind of want to empower me as a woman. I, in my fear, have almost just sort of wanted him to alleviate my fears and not really for me to have a proper voice, if that makes sense. I wanted to prove myself, but not really have a proper voice. And so, I just encourage you to feel your feelings about it, because obviously, women have a lot of issues there. And
you do have a lot of anti-men sentiment, by the way.
Yeah, Hannah, yourself, yeah.
And yourself. Sorry.
Yeah. And I do understand that a lot of women find it a bit frustrating because I don't know if I understand that, but they'd like me to have the development of Jesus, and I'm still reaching that because they'd like to hear all this from a woman, because hearing it from a man is a bit like, I don't know if I want to listen to this guy, because I've got all my issues with my dad and my past and stuff. But I'm going to get there. I'm just on my journey, and you're really helping me with that. So
and I don't have any control over Mary's development. I don't have any control over Mary's life in any way at all. So how rapidly she develops is up to Mary. Now, Mary, in the past 15 years, has been quite resistive to developing for lots of reasons. And one of the main reasons has been she's terrified of violence. From the amount of violence that I get is quite high from people. And I've had many threats to my life and so forth already. And Mary gets quite scared of all of that. And so she's trying to calm everybody down all the time. And I don't, as you know, care really much about calming you down.
Well, and when you say you don't care, it's more that, and this is what I'm finding in myself, you just have more faith that people can feel their feelings. You can get through your fear.
You can feel your tough emotions without being violent.
Yeah.
You can feel your tough emotions without acting badly. So I don't worry too much about that. And I also feel quite protected, in the sense of, I know God wants me to share God's truth. Our spirit friends are trying to give me as much protection as possible. And I know that if I stay in harmony with truth myself, I am afforded the most protection that I could possibly be afforded. I'm working in harmony with the law. Frequently what would happen in our discussions is I will be on a subject and Mary will try to move that subject to a different subject. And I'm trying to get back the subject because I'm not finished with that subject yet. So it has been a lot easier for me to teach without Mary being present under those circumstances than it is when Mary is there, because quite often she feels challenged about the subject and then she wants me to move on from that subject. And I'm going, but I'm not finished yet.
Yeah.
We need to, there's things we need to say, there's truths we need to share, and we need to give complete information. So there's many times where I will just say, no, let's stop there. I need to get back on this subject. But I don't say it to Mary, I just interrupt her.
Yeah. And a lot of the discussions about this happen in private too.
Yeah.
But I've been quite arrogant. I have many regrets actually about the ways that I've behaved on camera many times, but I'm just being kind to myself about that as well and saying, well, that was a part of where I was at. But it's
also interesting, isn't it, that most women think it was okay.
Yes,
Yes.
the way
And
that
even
I
most
was,
men.
Yeah,
I think it was okay.
yeah.
It's only when we discuss it in private and I say, no, here's God's truth about what you're doing. Here's and let's talk to God about what He feels about what you're doing, to the truth, because like if I share some truth with you and you're all triggered into fear, if Mary allays that fear, she's now undone the work I just did,
Yeah.
completely undone. And if Mary says something to you, and there are times when she does mediumship or says something to you and you're all triggered, if I then said some things to alleviate your fears, then I'll be undoing the truth, which is something I never want to do. So, and also, I started this process of sharing truth way before Mary did. It makes sense? And so, in a lot of ways, Mary has joined me, and there's been a whole heap of things that we've had to work out ourselves about how that is going to happen if she's going to want. So there's a period of time when she wanted to join me, but she wanted to do it out of harmony with God's way. And so we had to work through all of that as to why you want to do it out of harmony with God's way. What's the emotional reasons? Can you see them? And also instead of just banning Mary from coming until she sorted that out, she came every time, and then afterwards we'd have to have another talk, and another talk and another talk, and it just depended on how open Mary was to making any changes as to how long it took to change that thing.
Yeah.
And I've had the one advantage that I've had is that I've had a head start on Mary. I found out, I remembered the process of progress when I was 33 years of age, and I met Mary when I was 45. So I had a 12-year head start, and I did all of that work, the majority of it in private, like when nobody was listening to me. Now, Mary, unfortunately, or in some cases, has had the disadvantage of doing it in public.
Sort of being thrust into
public
public
light,
attention,
where everybody's looking at her and looking at us and looking at, and she hasn't had any, and she's had, and this is one of the emotions Mary's had to work through. Hasn't had any real space to work through her rage about who she is and her anger about what I've been doing and that I'd already been doing it before she met me and a lot of other issues.
I had a lot of those feelings, didn't I? Of like, this is so humiliating. Here I am.
And she's working through that in public.
Yeah.
Which is actually a very humble thing to do. Brave. Yeah. And most of you have no idea how humble she is. How much focus on truth she has, and how brave she is, right? And like at times I feel a bit upset about that, but there's nothing I can do about your perception, and I don't really want to change it. I'm just saying that Mary has had to go through a different process of coming to terms with who she is than I've had to go through, because I had 12 years where I could work it all out myself to a large degree without any public scrutiny or interference to a degree. The last 5 years of it, there was a lot more public, but up until then, a lot of it, a good solid 7 or 8 years of it was complete, or more than that, 9 years of it was private, pretty much. And so that's, in a lot of ways, I've had that advantage of doing that Mary hasn't had. And it's been tricky for Mary to come to terms with that. And there's nothing, I can't save her from those feelings, but they are feelings that Mary needs to go through. And by the way, when the rest of the 14s, if they ever choose to do what we're doing, they're going to find it's all in public too, because I've already started the ball rolling, and unfortunately for them, they're going to, and this is why Mary needs to go through it first, because she will be best equipped to help the rest of the 14 go through similar emotions. I won't be because I did it all privately, right? Mary will know the feelings better than I do when it comes to that. And also, you could say your family life has removed you from a connection with God much more strongly than my family life removed me from a connection with God.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's also that she's facing at the same time, and she's doing it all in public. So the advantage of that for you is you get to see her progress. So there's advantage there, but of course for Mary it doesn't feel very good.
Well, I think
that everybody's very scrutinising and quite often critical and by the way, there have been people who are much more critical of me through this process than they have been of Mary, because they think that I handle Mary roughly.
Yes.
And as Mary well knows, nothing could be further from the truth. So, it's been quite tricky because quite often I get abusive emails from women who are supporting Mary, feeling that they need to support Mary against myself.
In the past, yeah.
So I find even that very interesting because they have no idea of what our life is like in private, because Mary definitely gets to have her say all the time. And in fact, if we look honestly at our last, the time we've been together, I've probably listened to you 95% of the time, and Mary's listened to me 5% of the time.
Again, something that
which is
being
changing.
worked on.
No,
yes.
it's changing.
Yes.
But when we first met, Mary's ultimate goal was to convince me that I was an idiot, and that while she felt attracted to me and everything else, and while this divine truth stuff was very interesting, I'm definitely not Jesus, and she's definitely not Mary Magdalene, even though she felt she was. She's trying to convince me and her that she's not, and so even all that process has been very difficult in the sense from my perspective, because I've had to go. At some point, I've got to go. My relationship with God, if Mary and I are going to progress as a unit, as a soul, my relationship with God is going to have to be more important than my relationship with Mary. Because if my relationship with Mary was more important, I would have sacrificed God's principles for Mary's feelings. Does that make sense to you?
And that was hard for you too.
It was
wasn't
hard,
it?
because I wanted to.
You wanted me in your life so much, and it was quite.
And I wanted to sacrifice. Even myself for Mary, for the sake of Mary's feelings. But after all, I realised, actually, if I do that, we both won't progress.
And it's just the biggest gift to me that you never did that. It's such a gift to me. Yeah.
And in doing that, it's made us closer, stronger. It's also made Mary more motivated and enabled, I suppose. Is probably the best way.
Exactly.
Because instead of me saying to Mary, "You've got to make these changes," I'm saying, "Here's God's principles. You're allowed to do whatever you like, right? But I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to live this way. I'm going to live this life the way God wants me to. And if you are going to be opposing me living the life," because at the beginning of our relationship, Mary was probably my main opposer. If you
wanted addiction, I want worldly sort of
approval
comfort and approval. Not like I didn't want popularity. No. I didn't want exposure.
Didn't want any public exposure.
I just want
Mary wanted me to not
acceptance.
Talk to any person publicly.
Yeah.
She wanted to have no seminars, no presentations, no travel, no any of those.
But then I get there, I love all you guys. So it's I get so excited about God's truth.
When you start connecting to your feelings for people, then you feel differently, isn't it? But
well, and now I feel like I was kind of like, hey Jesus, let's go around the world.
Mary's the one who organised. She organised this trip, and I just sort of Well, I didn't
You
sit
did a
back.
lot.
I did
You
for a
did a
bit,
lot,
but it was more like I let Mary organise things the way she wanted to organise them, and eventually in the process,
I learnt a
you
lot.
learnt a lot, didn't
Yeah,
you, as
I
to
did.
how to organise the trip?
Yeah.
But we did that on purpose as well, because it's one thing me saying to Mary, "Look, Mary, this living room thing's not going to work," but it's another thing for her to go through the organising of experiencing of the organising of it and realise it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Without my
Yeah.
influence.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. We let each other come to our own conclusions. As we progress towards God, eventually our own conclusions will disappear and we'll have more and more conclusions that are in harmony with God's. And if there is an inequality in terms of our progress, well, obviously one of us has got to rely on the other of us, that the person who's closer to God is going to know God's opinions more. And that also is something that needs to be listened to. Now, Mary didn't want to listen to that for the first probably, well, even up until 2019.
Jay, it's been a long
Yeah,
time.
it's been a while.
Yeah, I
Probably
really
the first
have
solid 10
come
years.
kicking and screaming to God,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
I've fought it a lot and I've had big tantrums and like I talked about with you guys yesterday, lots of demands, lots
Yeah.
of expectations. I shouldn't have to feel this way. I shouldn't have to do things God's way. It's a special case for me. Like a lot of things that I see in a lot of you guys, at various times, I've done it. I've been there.
And in that regard, Mary sort of understands your emotions sometimes better than I do, because I'm not a kicker and screamer.
Yeah, Jesus has this beautiful heart where it's like, well, if it's right, that's
It's
it.
right. It's too
But
bad. I've got to
just
just do it.
I'll deal with whatever comes up. And
Yeah.
I had more of a feeling, well, it's right, but it's not fair, or it's right, but I can't do it, or
Yeah,
it's right,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So for me, the righteous view of your own rightness, that most people seem to have, I don't have that at all. God's the person who's right, and my responsibility is to find out what that is. And that's it. And so when somebody shares, when God shares a truth with me, it's almost instant that I absorb it and take it on as true.
And act on it.
And act upon it. For all of the others of the 14, they haven't had that experience on earth that I had in the first century. So I have, in some ways, some sort of advantage. That's how I engaged my first century life. Whenever God shared something with me, I said, right, that's it. That's what I feel. I've got to go through the feelings, and that's what I'm going to do. And there are plenty of times when I was quite concerned. I knew I was going to die. I knew I was worried about, because I knew also that I'd meet Mary in the first century. I knew I'd meet her. But I also knew I was going to die. So how was that going to be? I'd meet her and then a few years later I'm going to die. How is she going to feel about that? So those kind of things concerned me. But at the end of the day, I have learnt that if you do things God's way, things work out for the best for your whole soul.
Yeah.
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 Of which I am only one half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our relationship is improving well now, but there's been times where you've left and gone, and 3 months at a time. I think Mary's probably left 10 times at least in the time I've known her.
Yeah.
For different reasons. Sometimes supposedly to deal with some feelings that you never dealt with, wasn't it? And then, and then other times,
running away is what it was.
Yeah, running away.
Yeah. All the time, really. Yeah.
And each time I just say, well, if...
This is, I suppose, probably something that people don't know about you either, is that Jesus is very respectful of my free will. If I don't want to be there, no matter how he feels about it, he's not going to impose anything on me about that. And we're just doing our thing. We're working through our injuries, aren't we? We've had injuries with the opposite gender as well that have all been exposed in this process.
Yeah,
Both of us.
my primary one was bending over backwards for the woman in order and sacrificing God's principles in the process.
Yeah.
And Mary, being the way she has been, has sorted me out in that regard, because I've had to become quite firm, not unlovingly so, but just quite firm. No, I am sticking to these principles no matter what Mary wants me to do, and even if she hates me for it, I'm sticking to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I have had just so many issues with men.
But you respect that, don't you?
I do, very much. Yeah. I very much respect Jesus.
Because what I found initially is I was trying to conform, and the more I conformed, the more Mary disrespected me. So it's to my own detriment as well as to the detriment of God's truth.
When we met, and I'm sure it's the same for most of you when you start this process, you really want a partner who's just going to make your fears and sadness go away. You know, it's not really anything about them. And meeting Jesus has been like he you know, obviously we've known each other before, but it's very impressive to meet someone who doesn't bend to that codependence, and then I get to see the real qualities in him. So not just his personality, but the qualities he's developed, like the character to really stick to something when it's hard, to face attack even if you're going to feel something, to stick to principles because they are good and right, you know, and that's the reason why you do it, not because you're going to get something out of it. Like, these are points of his character that are very attractive to me, you know, as well as, you know, your personality. But I didn't want that initially. I didn't have respect for that. I wasn't looking for a man with character. I was looking for a man who would, you know, meet my addictions. And that was our argument, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was a 10-year argument.
Yep. Took time. I was stubborn. Very stubborn person.
And we would sit down and talk for hours and hours, sometimes whole days without sleeping, about God's principles versus your personal feelings.
Yeah.
About, are you going to adhere to God's principles, or are we just going to engage our own personal feelings, honour those, and then mess up everything with regard to God's principles?
Yeah, and this is where the lesson of humility is so important. You know, what we were talking about yesterday, the mind versus the feeling state. It wasn't until I was willing to feel some things that this is why it took 10 years. You know, I didn't want to feel really what was involved, especially about identity. You know, I think that's a big stumbling block for all the 14. But, you know, until
it's
I was...
It's about stuff that you guys don't have to worry about.
No. But the principle
of...
remembering
first century experiences, remembering spirit experiences, and the identity. All the 14 have huge amounts of terror and rage about that. And I had some rage, very little. I got through it in about 3 months. Had a fair bit of terror. It took me more like 5 years to deal with the terror about it. But all the rest of the 14 haven't dealt with it. Not to this day.
Yeah. But the principle of things changing in your relationship is the same. You know, you need to be humble about things rather than just discuss them. You know, I was willing to discuss things until the cows came home.
Well, it's like Mary would explain to me all the reasons why I was wrong, and I would listen to the whole thing generally. And then after a while I go, you know, all I needed to do is go, but here's God's principle, babe. And she goes, jeez. You know, like, you know, so I listened to her for 3 hours about her reasons of why she's doing what she's doing. And then, but I say then I have my 5 minutes of saying, but here's God's principle, right, of truth and love. And Mary just goes, and like, you'll see with Mary that she just goes, yeah, I can't deny that. It's sort of like, and so after a while we learnt that listening for the 3 hours
in the hopes that I might
in the hope that she might work it out herself
yeah.
Was really wasting both of our time. And so I would let her go for 15 minutes instead of 3 hours, And then I say, babe, do you really want to just know the truth, or you're just going to tell me the story?
Well, one of the things about fear and when we've been overlooked as a child or we're very afraid is we want to say it all. You know, we want to get it all out and we want to be heard by the other person and we want to...
Can I say, though, when you do that, you're not feeling it.
That's right. It's the addiction to avoid the fear or addiction to avoid the sadness that causes that.
Yeah.
And, I've been pretty
So
vulnerable in
the
that.
desire to say everything to somebody means that you're not actually feeling it. And when you feel it, it almost becomes unnecessary to say anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why most of you don't know what I've been through, because I've never really explained it except from a teaching perspective. That's the only time I do now. I don't sort of sit there and get a whole heap of you to commiserate with my feelings about things. And that's what Mary wanted to do at the beginning as well.
Very much, yeah.
Because she wanted justification for being in a rage about who she is.
Yeah.
Right? And I was saying to Mary during those days, I said, but darling, this is not loving to do that. It's not loving to involve large groups of people in your process. You know, the loving thing to do is to be humble and have your process,
Yep.
rather than involve.
I've got a lot of regrets about that too.
Yeah.
Involving other people.
Yeah. And the trouble with involving other people is other people then all want to have a say. And then, of course, that muddies your waters in terms of you having your process. And that's something that's worth knowing, because the more public you make your process, and I mean sharing it with family and friends and, you know, and of course for us it's like even more public because, you know, we're in front of people all the time. But the more public you make your process, the more they're going to want to interfere with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You follow?
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of people go, oh, you're feeling too much emotion now. Let's take you to the doctor. You know, all that kind of stuff. You seem to me to be very depressed. Can we, you know, like there have been times when I've been crying for like 3 months straight. If people knew about it, they would have certified me, right? Because they're terrified of someone crying for 3 months straight, right? But I've got the confidence that if I need to cry for 3 months straight to get to the bottom of an issue, I can do it and I'll resolve it. And the rest of the 14 yet don't have that full confidence. So don't have that full confidence in God's way. They are in a process. Mary's the closest of all the rest of the 14 to having that breakthrough. And Mary will be the next person who has those breakthroughs. On earth, she'll be the next person. And then after that, hopefully we can help some of the others and some of you to have the same breakthroughs. But that's probably how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I can't remember what I was going to say, but I think that I said it all, you know. I think that I didn't feel there was anything left. What you notice now is that I'm just more respectful of like that we can take turns speaking now. And so if I feel something's left over, like yesterday, you know, a few times where I feel like, no, this hasn't been covered, I'm going to say this. I just wait till he's finished, though, rather than trying to interject. And a lot of the old things I'd interject before you got to your point. Yeah, yeah. Yep.